Hello all, I hope you're having a nice Sunday evening. As I've stated before, I sometimes find unexpected gems on Tubi and or YouTube, and I found another one tonight, a movie I hadn't actually heard of. It's called Outlander, and it's from 2008. I should mention that doesn't have anything to do with either the TV series or there was a previous movie, I think, with that title, but this is separate. It's independent. It's a science fiction movie, um, and it's really quite good. It was written and directed by a guy named Howard McCain, and it stars Jim Caviziel and as a character called Kainan, Sophia Myles as Freya, John Hurt as Hrothgar, Ron Perlman, who is excellent as always, as a character called Gunnar, Jack Huston as Wulfric, who is Hrothgar's son, uh, Aidan Devine as Einar, who's another member of the tribe, Katie Bergen as Sonia, Cliff Saunders as Boromir, and if these names sound familiar, I'll tell you why in a minute. Matt Cooke as just the captain, John Beale as a guy named Edmund, and James Preston as Bjorn. There's also a young boy, and I'm sorry I didn't get his name. His name in the movie is Arn, but didn't get the actor's name. But it's basically a retelling of the classic story Beowulf. And if you're familiar with Beowulf, it's about a warrior who comes to visit a king named Hrothgar in his shield hall and warn him that there's a dragon that's been ravaging the city. The dragon's name is Grendel, and Beowulf says that he will defeat Grendel if King Hrothgar will make him a knight of his court, and I think for some money as well. And I don't remember, but I think he also asked for the hand of his daughter. I don't believe her name was Freya in the story. I think it was something else. But Beowulf agrees, and he goes out to fight the dragon, and there's all sorts of consequences that go on. And basically the same thing kind of happens in this movie. That there's a spaceship that crashes into a lake, and you see the title say that it's 709 AD in Norway, so it's the Iron Age. It's the 8th century, and Vikings rule Norway, and they have several tribes, and they're fighting each other. And one of the reasons that they're fighting is the ruins of the spaceship that crashed burn up this village. They crash and land, they burn up Gunnar's village and kill a lot of his people. And he thinks that Hrothgar's tribe did it on purpose, and they're going to take their revenge. But it turns out there's something much more sinister lurking around for them, a creature who attacks people at random, apparently, and it glows in the dark, literally glows red, and people can't see it until it glows, and it moves very quickly. And according to Kainan is captured by these villagers. He tries to fight the Moorwen, which is what this creature is called, with a kind of an advanced laser gun. It has a four-pronged whip tail, and one of the whips snaps the gun out of his hand and goes down a waterfall, so he's lost that. And then he encounters some of the Vikings from King Hrothgar's tribe, and they knock him out. They don't know who he is. They think he's just an outsider. He wakes up and he's tied up, and they ask him, who are you? Where'd you come from? And he's wearing these rather strange clothes, which are his clothes from the spaceship, his vest and his jacket and his pants. And they beat him off. They're asking him, interrogating him. They don't believe anything he says. He tells them that he's from Ireland, and they say, "Where's that?" He says, "Well, it's north, of here." And they don't really quite believe that he's from, where he says he is, and they think he's a spy for Gunnar, and they're questioning him, and they tie him up, and meanwhile. You see that some of the villagers are starting to be picked off by this strange creature. You don't see very much of the creature at all. You just see somebody being pulled through a wall. And, the walls are made out of thatch. This is the 8th century. Their Viking buildings are made out of thatch with grass roofs and or mud roofs, and that's authentic. There's really good sets, really good set dressing and costume design, and the weaponry looks real. The swords are just about the right size for authentic looking Viking swords. They're a little bit longer, but I think that was okay. There were people who used long swords in the Viking period, but they mostly used the shorter ones just because it was easier to fight up close with them, and most of the battles they had were up close. So they used swords and wooden shields that they called bucklers, which were slightly smaller. It wasn't like in some Hollywood movies you see these huge shields, and nobody had a huge shield like that. They had these small wooden shields which were sometimes reinforced with leather. It had leather straps, and that made them stronger. They could deflect a sword blow from one of these small, short swords. And they would do a lot of in close fighting, other than archery, which they also had mastered by that time. The Vikings had the longbow, which gave them a big advantage over some of their enemies who did not have longbows. So those things were good. The weapons looked authentic. Some of the acting is a bit wooden, but you get a fantastic performance by John Hurt as King Hrothgar. He's just magnificent, and Ron Perlman is great as Gunnar, who's a character who's evil at the beginning, but he becomes more sympathetic as he begins to realize the greater threat to the tribes, which is from the Moorwen, which attacks his men, and when his men are planning a sneak attack on Hrothgar, and then he says, let us in, we surrender, we're not going to fight you. We've seen that thing out there, we know what it is. I made a few notes here. I'm sorry if I need to refer to them. There's a scene before they find the Moorwen. They're going out to hunt it now because it's killed some people, but they don't really know what it is. There's a scene where they think they found it, and what they found is actually a bear. But the bear attacks King Hrothgar, and Kainan kills it with his sword. So now he's like a big hero. And they take him back to Hrothgar's mead hall, and they're getting drunk, and they have him do this thing that I believe they actually called it a shield dance, where all the warriors hold up their shields like this, and they have to walk across them. And he and Wulfric are having sort of a competition. And eventually he almost wins, but as he's stepping on Boromir's Boromir's shield, rather, it cracks and breaks, and he falls to the floor. So technically Wulfric won the contest. The name Boromir, by the way, is from Lord of the Rings. One of the characters in a human character was called Boromir. So I think that was a good little sort of an in joke there. They have wooden shovels, not steel shovels or brass shovels, which I thought was good. It was authentic for the period. They use whale oil to light their lamps, and they're going to after they killed the bear, the Moorwen attacks several times and kills people. So now people believe it's real, and they're trying to formulate a plan. How are they going to kill it? And Kainan, who has experience with these things, say you can't chase it. It's much too fast. You have to trap it. So they build this enormous, like a pit trap, and they put shields in it so that people can walk over it. But they pour whale oil into it, which is what they use to light their lamps. They pour all the village's whale oil, basically, into it in these huge barrels. And then when the Moorwen comes after them, as it inevitably does, they have the archers fire flaming arrows into the pit, and it explodes in this huge explosion. Well, as is typical with this kind of movie, given that it's a horror movie, for some reason it doesn't, all that flame does not kill the Moorwen, which is slightly unrealistic. There's a backstory that you find out, which is good, and this is good writing. You find out that Freya is starting to fall for Kainan, and is starting to ask him some questions about where he really came from, and he tries to explain. He says, my people were no different than yours, and we found an island and we wanted it. Well, the island was another planet, and he said, but the island belonged to somebody else, the Moorwens, and we didn't care. We burned out, that we wiped them out, and you see their village being annihilated basically by what looks like a low-yield nuclear blast, and it wipes them completely out, or so they thought. And the truth is they didn't wipe out all of them. There was still one left, and when Kainan, goes to visit another planet, and he's going to come back, he leaves his wife and child behind and it turns out there's one Moorwen left, and it wipes out their whole village, kind of in revenge for what they did. They wiped out his whole species, so it's kind of, it makes these creatures that are really quite horrible a bit more sympathetic, at least in their motivation, if not in their actions, which are quite horrific. They eat people alive, and you see that in a couple of scenes. Again, the effects are pretty gory. Some of them are pretty kind of gross, but well done. For what's obviously a rather low budget movie. I think they said it was made for $7 million, or it was made for $47 million. It only made $7 million at the box office. Flopped, did not do well, and I don't really understand, because it's actually pretty good, I thought. A lot of things are good. The Viking longships look realistic. The weapons, like I said, look realistic. The clothing, which is all kind of, animal skins, looks, realistic for the period. The acting, like I said, it goes from mediocre to good. The guy who played Wulfric was quite a good actor, as well as the one who played Boromir. Some of the minor characters there's this kid who's kind of being orange, who becomes kind of annoying. And eventually Kainan is going to adopt him as his son. There's a big confrontation with the Moorwen. It's living inside he tells the Hrothgar's warriors that it turns out there's a second one. After they burn the first one, allegedly in the pit, it turns out there's a second, smaller one, which apparently it's a child. Though we don't know how they reproduce. But it's just another, and it attacks and kills King Hrothgar, and before Freya can fend it off, and she does fend it off somewhat, and it runs away. Now they got to find out where it is. Where is it? They realize that it came out from out of a stone well. They're going to lower themselves into the well, and Freya insists on coming along. They say, "No, you're not coming." And she said, "Look, it killed my father. It destroyed my village. I'm coming." So the other villagers have taken to a number of longboats, and they're going to just stay offshore while they figure out what's going on with the Moorwens. And so Hrothgar and Boromir and a couple of other of the Vikings, Einar and Freya, all go down into this. They take ropes and they basically spelunk down into this well. They find underneath that there's kind of like a area of sort of volcanism. There's all these like volcanic holes and fissures, I should say, and the Moorwens are living in these fissures. They've stolen Freya. They stole Freya off a raft that they sunk, and she wakes up and she's in this pile of horribly mutilated bodies, and she can't get out. She's stuck under a couple of corpses. She's like trying to get out, and meanwhile the smaller Moorwen is eating somebody, eating these corpses. It's basically a ghoul, it's eating dead people. And Wulfric and Boromir had he'd gone down into the lake where his ship crashed and brought up a big piece of metal about 15, 20 feet long, and it's made out of a harder metal than the metals that they have. And he asked Boromir to forge swords out of it, and he makes one sword for Wulfric and one sword for Kainan, and he forges them into basically long swords. They go down with these long swords into the well. Like I said, they find this volcanic area. Obviously, the Moorwens are living in this because they like heat, and they dwell in these areas, and they're eating these corpses over a long period of time of these Vikings that they killed, and both Gunnar's men and Hrothgar's men. And Freya's struggling to survive. Wulfric and Boromir are trying to figure out where the Moorwens are. One of them attacks and fatally wounds Boromir, despite his having the better sword. And then Kainan, it's Freya, actually. Freya beheads the smaller one, which had been blinded by Boromir. And then obviously the big one is really, really pissed. If it is a mother, they don't really explain that, but it doesn't really need to be explained. It's just the larger of the Moorwens. The last survivor really is now going to come after Kainan and Wulfric and Freya, and it pounces on Wulfric and attacks him. He does slash it with the sword a couple of times and wounds it, but he doesn't kill it. And then Freya is trying to climb this cliff, and she's slipping down, but she manages to get a grip. But she's kind of stuck. There's nothing she can really do. Eventually, obviously, Kainan is going to have to confront the Moorwen, and does. And there's a kind of an odd moment where he attacks it, and it slips down the cliff face, and then he reaches his hand down and pulls it back up, like he's trying to save it. And you see kind of a look on its face, like it's thinking it's not going to kill him. It's grabbed Freya, and he wants it to let go of Freya. So he chops off its hand, and it falls down the cliff, and it is killed. But you get the feeling that A, he didn't want to kill it, and B, that it wasn't evil. It wasn't like killing people because it's a monster. It was just doing that because it was trying to survive. And you get that instinct by the look that it had on its face before its hand is chopped off and it dies by going down into the waterfall. I thought it was really quite a good movie. I thought it was well produced. It was well edited, well written. There's a good soundtrack, good lighting, good set dressing, as I said, and visual effects. It doesn't rely too heavily. There is some CGI work in it, in the depiction of the Moorwens, but which are kind of dragon-like creatures. They're not dragons; they're dragon-like. They can fly, and they have 4 whip-like tails, and they have a big head, kind of like a dinosaur, scales, and big, foreclaws and back claws. But again, they're supposed to be aliens. They're not from Earth. The last thing that you see is quite interesting. That Wulfric is killed. Wulfric has bled out, and he gives Kainan the king's medal, which was given to him by Hrothgar. Kainan tells Freya, wraps the symbol in a cloth and gives it to Freya and says, "I'll be right back." She thinks he's not coming back, but he kisses her, and then he goes to the cliff face where we saw him in the original scene. He had brought a homing beacon with him from his ship, and it was what taught him how to speak Norse. It gave him a kind of a brain transfer of information, which apparently is painful and also causes you to throw up, because that's what happened at the beginning. But it taught him Norse and about their history, and so he could talk with them and act like one of them. And the beacon has now located another ship, and it is calling the ship in to come pick him up, and he destroys the beacon, which explodes, and then the ship goes away. So, as Freya says in the end, they put Wulfric and Hrothgar's bodies on a Viking longship, and as was their tradition, they set it on fire. So they've given him a proper Viking funeral. And Freya gives a voiceover where she says, at last I found out that Kainan had come from the gods, but rather than going back to the gods, he chose to take a wife and to adopt a boy as his son and decide to stay with us. She gives him back the king's medal, and now he is going to become the king. I think that was really good, and I thought, again, very well written, pretty much very well acted by at least the principal actors were all quite good. I had never seen that Sophia Myles, who played Freya. I think she's really beautiful, gorgeous redhead. I have a thing about redheads, but again, and also Trisha Bergen, who was in, is also an attractive redhead. But really good story, well told. Like I said, it's just a reworking of Beowulf, but there's some interesting science fiction elements. And somebody said, it's not good enough to become the cult film that people want it to become. I think it is, actually. I think this could become a cult film, and it should. It has enough going for it that I think, it could become a cult film. Highly recommend it.